What is up, everybody? Thanks for checking out Hunt, Shoot, Live. I've been really excited about this episode because a couple weeks ago I did the trauma test where I tested the Gamo Swarm Magnum on some real animal skulls. And I've had a lot of interest in that video and had a lot of people really want to see what it's like on the actual animal head, so a full-size animal head. So I have been able to not only procure a couple more skulls. I've got another bear skull, I've got a deer skull, and I've got a big Angus cow skull, so some of the same stuff like I tested in the last video. But I also have a white-tailed deer head. One of my good buddies, he decided that he was not going to boil his head out that he had saved from this past season. So I have a real whitetail, it's a spike. I have a real whitetail deer head, skin still on it, and I am going to test that. I've got the Gamo Swarm Whisper today, and we know that the last test that I did was with the Swarm Magnum, so we will see real quick. I'm going to test first shooting at the bear skull, the deer skull, and I'll save the deer head for last. But if we can actually get this penetrating those skulls I'm set up at 50 yards, exactly the same as I was the last test. I'm going to use got these domed Ultra Magnum 14 grain, 14.3 grain. This gun shoots those pretty well. We'll give it a try. If we can get some penetration on the skulls to begin with, then I am going to try the deer head, and we'll talk a little bit about the results after that. And then, for those of you who might be a little bit squeamish, you might want to not check out that particular part, because once I do shoot the deer head, I am going to be cutting the flesh off, and we'll be digging in and seeing exactly what kind of trauma this bad boy caused. So stick around, this should be fun. First up, deer skull. Looks like I had at least 4 good hits. That may be 2 shots right there. I don't have a drop reticle on my scope, so totally Kentucky windage there, and that sighted in at 30. So there was a little guessing on the holdover initially, but I got some good hits. You can see I got a hit right here beside the eye socket. I have at least one there. That kind of looks like 2 might have went through there. Got one right here in the center of the skull and one at the top part of the skull. Now, as far as pass-throughs, it just so happens that that one shot right out the back, right out of the back where there is no skull. Now this shot did exit right here, so we had an entrance into the top of the skull, exit out the bottom. And this deer was a doe that I had killed this past year, and it's full-grown doe. Obviously, then our other 2 hits were here, and both of those didn't have anything to penetrate on the other side. But that showed me all that I needed to see. I think we're safe to proceed on to the bear skull. It definitely did a fine job on this doe, 50 yards. So Gamo Swarm Whisper, 50 yards, no problem on the deer skull. Bear skull coming up next. So we got 7 hits on the bear skull, and a few of them are perfect placement. Got one right here, and it did penetrate through. Of course, that would be that is to be expected. Got 2 hits here, and of course, looking at this bear, I'm going to assume this was probably 175, 200 pound bear. Got 2 hits here and one hit here, penetrations. All those are penetrations. When you flip it around on the back, it looks like 2 of those penetrated all the way through. Got a hole right just above my finger there, and then I've actually got the pellet sticking out right there. So obviously no brain in the way, but that's pretty cool. 50 yards with the Gamo Swarm Whisper. 14.3 grain domed magnum. 3 total penetrations, and then 2 of those went completely through. Now, I had one more crack. This one cracked the skull really good. I had one that hit here and sort of cracked it, but definitely didn't get a full penetration. And of course up here, I had another full penetration, and it was not a pass-through. But, you know, 175, 200 pound bear, I don't recommend that you go bear hunting with the Gamo Swarm Whisper, but that is pretty impressive. Of course, we saw in my other video that the Swarm Magnum would do it, but the Swarm Whisper's doing it too. 50 yards. Black bear. Okay, moving on up. Let's see what it does on the Black Angus skull. All right, big old Black Angus cow skull. Very similar results as I had with the Swarm Magnum. So as far as total penetrations, now nothing was a complete pass-through, and I didn't have any complete pass-throughs with the Swarm Magnum either. Of course, again, this is a massive full-grown Angus cow skull. But as far as total penetrations into the skull, there is one that is a complete penetration all the way into the brain cavity. Now, these 2 here, they probably look like complete penetrations on the camera, but I can actually see another layer of bone. I guess it's just where I hit right above the eye socket there. Just the other side of that bone on the eye socket is there. So, of course, we don't want to hunt. We don't want to shoot cows with a pellet rifle, but you definitely wouldn't want to. There is a magic little window right here, and we saw that with the Magnum test as well. Right here at the eye socket, but you know, if you get too close to it, you're not going to get good penetration. And then if you hit up here with the Swarm Magnum, we didn't have any luck. And on this one, we hit in several other places and didn't have any kind of penetration. There's a hit here and here, here. There's a hit here. Right here's my pellet actually still stuck in there. So these suckers are hard. This is a hard skull. Got one sticking out right there. But you know, I think that's still pretty daggone impressive that a pellet rifle can penetrate a Black Angus skull at 50 yards. That's pretty impressive. So, the moment that you've all been waiting for. Now, for those of you who are a little squeamish, you might want to check out at this point, because I am going to show you a severed deer head that we're getting ready to shoot. Okay, I'm assuming if you're still watching, you do not mind to see a severed deer head. This is a whitetail buck. Thanks to to my buddy Nate. He took this deer this past season, and he decided he wasn't going to boil the skull out, so he donated to me for this test. So I'm going to set this bad boy up back here. As you can see, it's just been cut off of the deer, so there is nothing's been messed with. We've still got all the meat and flesh and everything. I'm gonna launch a bunch of pellets at this, 50 yards, and then we will inspect and see what the damage is. Very interested to see how this goes. I just want to give you an additional heads up. It's warm, so there are flies swarming this head that I have laying there to shoot at. Also, because it still does have the hide and the meat still on it, you really can't tell a lot. You can see it kind of shake every time that there's a penetration or that there's a hit. It's not a great deal that's gained from actually watching the shots. I'm going to include it for those who do want to watch it. But of course, the meat of the experiment is going to be whenever we cut it and we look into it. But, you know, so there's flies swarming this right now when you watch this, and you don't see a whole lot, but I'm just going to include that for those who do want to see that. So the moment that we've all been waiting for, here we go on the actual whitetail spike head, flesh on. Here we go. I'm going to show you what we got. I already shaved off the head here. Actually had 0 penetrations, none at all. Cracked the skull right here. Cracked the skull right here, basically right between the eyes. Got a pellet stuck in the head here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 different pellets that just sort of went through the meat and hide and hit the skull and stopped, and they didn't even break the skull. So a lot of good hits, but no complete penetrations. Okay, this is going to be a different part of the skull, but this is, you know, still part that I can salvage. So I want to see if I can penetrate this at 20 yards with the Swarm Whisper. So I'm at 20 yards now. This is untouched. I haven't cut this part of this deer. I'm going to see if I can get any penetration right here. 20 yards with the Swarm Whisper. I apologize ahead of time. I've got my ignorant pet turkey out, and he absolutely will gobble every single time that I make any kind of noise. Hey, Tom! So just expect that every time I take a shot, he's going to gobble. But let's see what the Swarm Whisper will do on this deer skull here at about 20 yards. So here's the damage at 20 yards. It definitely, you know, and I took so many shots, I don't know if one pellet would have done it, but I definitely had, you know, this completely busted through the skull right here. That is totally busted through the skull and into the brain cavity. This is a pileup of pellets right here. So I made it into the brain cavity, but they were stopping at the brain. Busted the jawbone. I was hitting a little bit low there. Had a lot though. Let me show you. Dug all of these out of there. Just stuck against the bone. So that hide absolutely made a difference, even at 20 yards. So interesting. You know, I wouldn't have said, I definitely wouldn't have said shoot a deer with the pellet rifle anyway, but just testing with the skull only, I never would have dreamed that just adding some hide and some flesh would have made that big of a difference, but it sure did. Well, how about that? Well, now I'm gonna have to get another head and try it with the Swarm Magnum. Before I finish up today, I have got to set this skull right here close, and I'm just gonna launch 10 shots and just see what that does. Of course, we've got brain and everything in there, so. Well, it's raining, and that's about all I'm going to do for today anyway. This thing's getting nasty to handle and shot so much. But, you know, no problem without the flesh on there at 20 yards. And we did have a couple of penetrations with the flesh on. So I don't know, you know, you guys just as much as me, I know you're wanting to see what the Swarm Magnum will do. So I'm going to have to try to get some other type of game animal head or coyote head or something, and you know, we'll do that video as soon as I can get it, and we'll test the Swarm Magnum with the flesh on. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, it still showed me I really like my Swarm Whisper. I think for small game, obviously I am not. I've got way better guns to take hunting for large animals, but I think the Swarm Whisper and the Swarm Magnum more than prove themselves for their ability to take small game animals at 50 plus yards. Absolutely to 50 yards, no doubt. So they're great weapons. I've posted links to any of that stuff and to the pellets that I use in the video description. You guys check that out if you want to purchase any of those items yourself. Appreciate you all for checking out Hunt, Shoot, Live. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Check us out every week. Got new videos every week. Go to huntshootlive.com. Check out some of our articles and stuff there. Appreciate you guys. Until next time, God bless.